Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Coming to you live from here in San Diego. I'm Michelle G., your relationship and dating guru, and I'm so excited to be spending this night with you. And here on this chat, we're going to be talking about, does it feel like you're on a conflict merry-go-round? Um, you know, this was a topic that generated a lot of buzz. I got a lot of emails from different people who were like, well, how do you stop it? And, I really enjoyed the blog article, but I need a little bit more. Do you have any techniques, like any solid techniques? And so it got me really thinking, when I was putting together this Google Hangout, the information that I wanted to give to you. So let me start by just, saying that a conflict merry-go-round has to do in so many different situations. If you've been dating for a while, you're going to have conflict. You could start getting into a routine, and so therefore you feel more comfortable to just kind of bicker and pick at things, if you will. Another one is if you have children that were just born, or you're kind of adjusting your life because having a child is a big change. If you've been married for a while, if you've been married, for a year, anything to 10, 20 plus years. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about that further on. And if you're single, this is important for you to kind of pay attention to because these patterns transpire when you're dating. So I want to go ahead first start off by giving a huge shout out to everyone who's watching us. Okay, everyone who is watching us from all the different chat platforms. So we have shout out to Facebook, we have a tweet chat that's going on, #love at Michelle G Fans if you want to join in. Also, anyone who's watching from YouTube. Now, throughout this entire time, if you have any questions or anything a comment or something, please use the email that's below, support@michelleg.com, and I will take all questions and answer your questions at the end. So I'm excited. All right, so first, let me explain the history of vows. Let's talk about vows and let's talk about contracts because they're similar, but yet they're not. So with vows, the history of vows is that it actually started like very early on, and it was interesting because what vows really were was, for example, there was a community and there would be someone who was on a journey or would just stop over for a while, and in their journey, they would ask to be part of this village, this community. And so what they had to do was verbally vow to the entire community that they were there to protect them, that they were going to stand in unison and fight against anything. And then that transpired through the Catholic Church. It became part of marriage. But it wasn't part of marriage initially. Vows were something that was just done between a single traveler, if you will, who was going to be part of the community and with the community itself. And let's talk about contracts. Every time that you're in a relationship, you enter into a contract with someone. Sometimes the contract goes a little bit like this. You're casually dating for a while, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'd like to take our relationship to the next level. Will you be my girlfriend? Will you be my boyfriend? And so there's that. There's that as the contract. But something really interesting that I've learned in relationships and something that I've noticed that happens over and over is that what is specifically is a contract? So when you think of a contract, if you purchase, let's say, a couch or you purchase a TV, you end up buying warranty for it, right? Or something that you can't return. Like, for example, on receipts, like if you buy electronics, it gives you, like, you have X amount of days and times before you can return this product. And when you purchase a warranty or you enter into an agreement or contract with someone, it outlines all the terms. From the term of, hey, we want to make sure that you're happy with our product, we give you this amount of time. If you want to take care of it, use this type of soap and water to, we're not responsible for X, Y, and Z. So you get this contract all laid out for you, right? But what happens in relationships is that after we agree to be part of a relationship, nobody knows the whole outline of the contract, if you will. And this is really, really important because you are entering into a relationship, into a contract with someone else. And it's something that really, when things like that are not discussed, what ends up happening is that contract is not discussed, then you have a lot of trouble in the relationship. And I'm going to go into the different levels of conflict for you to understand what I mean. So when you have these contracts, you know, when you were young, right, you have a contract with your parents. Your parents love you. They're there to support you, to nurture you, to teach you, right? What ends up happening is we develop our own perceptions about the environment that's around us. And this environment that around us molds and shapes how we see the world, how we see relationships, how we see finances, how we see health, how we prioritize things. So when you're entering into a relationship, if you don't know your own contract, meaning if you don't know your beliefs, if you don't understand what are the things that are important to you, then how do you expect to communicate that in a relationship? And then communication becomes a problem because you can't clearly define what it is that you're looking for or what you want or what you're willing or not willing to put up with. And so conflicts continue to occur. And so when they occur, it's usually the same principle, the same root, if you will. It just wears a different mask. You know, it's kind of like also when you're in a when you have a working relationship with someone that you work with. You have they have their own set and rules and expectations of a job and what they expect of a boss, you know. And I don't know about you, but for those of you who don't know, I was in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for 13 years. And one of the things that they emphasized in the Marine Corps was to go ahead and do counseling and initial counseling. So whoever was a part of your team, if you will, you knew how those expectations were clearly defined, what was expected from one another, how the relationship was to evolve. That was really important. And here's the thing, we do it in so many other parts of our life. Do we actually take the time to talk about it in our relationships? You know, I'm going to go back to this whole belief thing, and I'm getting all comfy here. This whole thing with beliefs, it's so important to talk about it. It's very important because when you define that, the conflicts minimize. They don't go away, but they minimize. And the way you deal with conflicts completely transforms your relationships. Not just intimate relationships, but the relationships you have with your family, with your colleagues. It just transforms it completely. So I want to challenge you to something. I want to give you a tool, an exercise for you to be able to really figure out what is it that you believe in. What relationship beliefs do you have? It's important for you to know this. And if you're single and you're watching, this applies to you too, because when you're getting ready to go out there and date, and you've had 3 to 4 dates, our first date, usually we put our best foot forward, where we just show up as the best version of ourselves, as one of my coaches says. So we show up at this great version, and then all of a sudden, you have 1, 2, and 3 dates, and you get a little bit more comfortable. It's not really till about the 4th and the 5th date, maybe even the 6th, that you actually can say to someone, hey, so how do you really feel about this? We make perceptions. We're building our perception. We're making our assumptions on those first couple of dates, okay? But it's time that you're able, when you do this exercise, which I'm going to share with you, you'll be able to clearly communicate what you believe in, what you want out of a relationship. That's very important, because if you don't know what you want, nobody can read your mind. So here's the exercise I want to share with you. I want you to go ahead and take a piece of paper, and you're going to take this piece of paper and at the top just put relationship beliefs, okay? And I want you to think of not necessarily what you expect in a relationship. What are your views on certain things? So how do you view finances in a relationship? How do you view personal time? How do you view us time? How do you view the relationships with your friends? How do you view chores around the house? How do you view, besides chores, how do you view like trips and family? That's a huge sticking point. For some of the clients that I have that have been married for 10 plus years, one of the biggest argument that they have, or the continuing argument, is family. Here's the thing. It's important to know what you have around family, what your beliefs are around it. Should a family be very involved in the marriage, or should a family kind of stay away? Are you close to your family? There's all these things that you have to think about, because the person that you're being involved with, or you're going to get involved with, comes with their own set of programmed beliefs, okay? When you clearly define that, and I would encourage that if you are involved in a relationship, your partner does the same exercise, because it allows you to understand two things. Number one, really understand where they come from when they're responding to you. Why it is that, I'll give you an example. I have a client of mine who, the one thing that irritates her is that her husband leaves the clothes and the shoes on the floor. And so we've talked about this, and when we really got to the core of it, it's not that the shoes or the clothes on the floor really have this big thing. It's that because she stays at home with her kids all day, and she cooks and she cleans, and she does her best to be supportive in her husband so he doesn't have to worry about the house chores, she feels completely unappreciated. That's why she puts so much value, and so it resurfaces in a different way. Oh, I cooked, you couldn't clean, I've been home all day with the kids. And again, it has nothing to do with the actual chore. It has everything to do with appreciation and how you feel the lack of, okay? That's why this exercise is important. And if you're single, you can talk about things like this. These are things that actually have to be discussed. I have my own set of beliefs that I came into. When my first marriage, my mom is an immigrant, for those of you who don't know. She came from Ecuador. And so my mom I remember when I was little, my mom would put together a dinner table. She cooked and she cleaned all day, and it was great, and she would take care of me. And my father would come home, eat, and they would do, their thing, or we would all spend family time together. And then my parents divorced, and so it was completely different from what I was used to. All of a sudden, like, I'm living with my auntie, my mom's working, a lot of things changed in my life. And so my initial perception that I brought into my first marriage was, okay, I have to cook and clean and take care of the household. Even though I worked, I still have to do it because that's what I brought into it. Well, that only lasted for literally a couple of months before I was like, okay, I work too. And it was always a constant fight, okay? And what I didn't understand and what I didn't realize, and it took me to go through that experience and reading and learning from other people, is that it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with me about feeling appreciated. And you know what I mean? So those are really things that will come through when you do this exercise. If you don't know, you don't know. But why not get to knowing? Why not want to take the path to know? Here's another really great technique that I want to share with you. So this is a technique that I've shared with several clients of mine, and it's been really powerful. And here's the thing. Conflicts are inevitable, okay? It's all about how you handle the conflict, okay? Remember, I talked about the beliefs, and those beliefs, when you don't talk them through, they really reinforce your actions, your reactions, and they reinforce subconsciously how you're programmed, okay? It's all about how you deal with those conflicts. Those conflicts have to be dealt with on a level of understanding. Now, I'm not saying that you're never going to have a disagreement where neither one of you are going to see eye to eye, no. But agree to disagree. No, the purpose of an argument is not to win. The purpose of an argument is not to continue adding fire to it, okay? That's not the purpose of an argument. It's not to convert into a conflict either. The purpose of an argument, or the way you should view it, is the opportunity to get to know one another more, not to play the blame game, okay? Which leads me into the technique that I use with my clients. I have a thought. Now you may say, what do you mean I have a thought? So what I've learned is that there's three things that happen in an argument. Number one, I feel. All the sentences start with, I feel this, I feel that, I feel as if you're doing this, okay? And what translates on the other person is, your fault, you're responsible, you did this to me. What does that mean? It puts a person on like this confrontational mode, like, whoa, 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 I didn't do anything. And so the person becomes defensive, right? The other thing that happens in an argument when it's not properly, in a conflict, when it's not properly dealt with, is that resentment starts building up. So remember the example that I used of the throwing the clothes on the floor and the shoes on the floor? Well, maybe at first it didn't bother you so much because you guys were new and you guys were just dating. But then, little by little, you start building resentment towards it. It just kind of starts happening, and then it kind of leads into bickering about other things, okay? And the third thing that happens with conflict is that nobody gets anywhere, okay? So this technique, which I tell my clients to use, I have a thought. Imagine I say to you, you know, Google, I feel as if you're just completely irrational. You make me feel like I am completely not appreciated. You know, it's always about you. Blame, 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 blame. Person shuts out. If I say, you know, I have this thought. This thought kind of popped into my head. You know, every time that there's, you know, clothes on the floor, the thought pops into my head that you don't really appreciate me, or that there's no appreciation in our relationship. And what happens is a person can't be angry at what you think. We think about random things all the time. We're always thinking, okay? But what it does is it doesn't put that person that you're talking and communicating with on the defense. On contrary, you know, what it ends up happening is that person will say, well, tell me more. Tell me more about this thought. Why do you have this thought? How do you, you know, how did this come about, you know? Or this person now becomes intrigued. They want to understand. They want to know. So I would say to you, that's important. You know, if you want to talk about difficult topics, I've said in one of my other Google Hangouts, hey, you want to get a topic across, or you want to talk about we need to spend more time together, or this isn't working in the relationship, I threw out there, hey, hon, you know, we got to talk about having more sex. Because sex is one thing, particularly with both men and women, that perks people's ears, you know. And then you can segue into, look, you know, I have a thought that, you know, every time this thought of like not feeling appreciated, no gratitude shown towards me, or, you know, this thought of just like, you know, I don't feel like you know, there's no trust here, like the lack of trust, you know, I have the thought that there's a lack of trust between our relationship. Oh, really? Well, tell me more. Why did that thought pop into your head? How do we deal that? You know, how do you? And so now the person becomes intrigued. They become engaged. Okay. Now, with relationship beliefs, okay, what's important to understand, what's important to know, is that when you're at that level and you use techniques like what I shared with you, it allows you to be able to understand the reaction and the person's action. It gives you a better understanding of where you both are coming from. So, logically speaking, if you know both where you guys are coming from, when you've cleared this out, would rules exist in a relationship? Would there be any expectations? No. I'm not a person, I personally don't believe in having expectations in a relationship. I know it sounds crazy. I've had a lot of people who I've mentioned this to, and they don't agree with it. I don't have expectations. I don't have rules in my relationship. I don't believe that, because I believe that a person should be able to be. I want for this person to be themselves. But in the beginning, we had to kind of hash all these things out. I had to understand where they were coming from, how they were raised, and why they view marriage and finances and relationships, you know, the way that they do. Because then when I have something that I feel that we're going to disagree on, or I see that conflict is arising between me and my partner, my husband, I can stop and say, I'm aware of it, and say, okay, he probably thinks like this because of this. Now, you know, I'm not in his head, but it helps me to say, I'm thinking that you're having this type of reaction because of this. Am I off? Am I wrong? And now it's not confrontational. Now we're actually engaging in communication. And you know what? Communication is key in a relationship. But I think what's even more relevant and more important is understanding beliefs. Really. We have all these beliefs about finances, about how we should live our lives, about work, and there's a common thread there. Communication is great, but if you don't understand where people are coming from, you're going to keep bumping heads. And I hope that this technique and this information that I've shared with you has served you. And I want to hear from you. I want to challenge you to go ahead and take the time. It shouldn't take you no more than 15 minutes. You can spare 15 minutes. If 15 minutes is going to save a relationship, or it's going to help you find the relationship that you're looking for, then go ahead and just spend the time on this and work on this and be honest with yourself. Our parents are our role models. Our parents taught us how to think. Our parents challenged us, how to challenge things. They taught us all these things. That's why we listened to them. That's why we embraced and we had all these perceptions that formed because of how they raised us. Maybe some of those beliefs, like the one that I brought with me in my first marriage, or about finances, I had to challenge it myself. Do I still feel that way, or is it just something that I'm carrying because it was what was taught to me? And I'm not saying my mother was wrong. She had her own experiences, why she believed things that she did, and culturally she was not raised here in the United States. But I was able to form my own opinions and have my own beliefs and challenge some of the beliefs that I had that, quite frankly, sometimes I'm like, oh, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't serve me. Is it moving me forward, or is it keeping me where I'm at today? So I ask you to please, take the time and do this exercise. So I have Team MG here who's telling me information that we have some questions. So I'm very anxious to take your questions. So, hi Michelle G. I love your show. My question is, are there words I should avoid when attempting to explain to my lover that I feel unheard in our arguments? Thank you so much for that. And for purposes, I never say people's names. So thank you so much if you're watching, which I know you are. Thank you for that question. So frustrated and unheard, actually. They used their own little nickname. I'm going to say one of the first words that you never want to say is, I feel that you're doing this, okay? That's an important word, an important phrase to not, I feel. If you start anything with I feel, it's automatically going to turn that off. And if you're starting to feel like you're not being heard in arguments, first off, change the word arguments. How about we use the word I feel unheard during discussions that we don't see eye to eye on. Arguments, when I say the word arguments, like, I tense up. But if I say, we don't see eye to eye on certain discussions, my voice, my body changes. I don't approach it with that tense, with that energy of like, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to put the gloves on and take you on. You know what I mean? So I would challenge you to first not use the word arguments, okay? The other thing that I would challenge you is take the time, take the opportunity to do this exercise, okay? See what beliefs and what struggles you feel or what you challenge, okay? And then I would have your partner do the same thing, because I am willing to bet that when you guys do that exercise together, you will learn and understand why it is that you feel unheard during these discussions, or what is it that he's doing. It may be that he was, your partner, your husband, significant other, whoever it may be, came from a background and an environment where they were married for 15, 20 plus years. The mother was very submissive, mom or the wife role, if you will, was submissive. And she never had an opportunity to really express her opinion. She was always quiet. And so if your partner saw that that's what a marriage was made of, then he's going to bring that to your marriage, to your relationship. Frustrated and unheard. Some other words that I would avoid using, number one word to avoid using is I can't believe you. I can't believe that you're not listening to me. You see all that negative, all that confrontational energy that comes with that? if you are so frustrated where you feel you're about to just lose it, I would say, you know what, dear? I cannot have this discussion right now. I really feel like I need to take a break. I feel like I just need to walk away. Could we pick this up at a later time? Could we discuss this at a later notice, you know? And then you would say, well, how long is the later notice? And do we go to bed angry? Do not go to bed angry, okay? If the discussion is not resolved before you go to bed, hug each other, tell each other that you love each other, and that regardless of the disagreement, your love for one another doesn't change. Because love is one of our biggest assets. It could be destructive, but it could also be the most beautiful thing that we embrace. So I hope that answers your question. We have another question here from Happy But Fed Up. How often, hola Michelle G. Hola. How often should I be checking in with my partner to ensure that our views are in alignment? This is a wonderful question. So when you have the initial discussion and you figure out each other's beliefs, what I would say to you is that the way you're going to be able to check in or know where you guys are at is first off to make sure that you have these types of discussions at least like on a monthly basis. Check in with one another. You know, after an argument or after a discussion, if you will, or after a conflict, I would check in with one another as well, because it's really important to constantly be checking in with one another. You know, I can't tell you like just monthly, quarterly, weekly. I think you're gonna have to do it by gut. You know, see how after you have the initial exercise and see how your partner reacts. See how your relationship changes. It may be that you guys are just having conversations about and opening those doors of communication on a weekly basis, like it just kind of starts evolving into that. So I really can't give you a definite answer, but I hope that answers your question. And we have a couple of more questions, and I apologize. I'm going to take one more because of time. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, and then I will answer on email any other questions that we have coming in. Hey, Michelle G, is there a point when the conflicts are just too much and you would recommend a client to walk away from the relationship? Sick and tired. Great question, sick and tired. Here's the thing. I will say that there comes a point, there's a whole bunch of other things that come into just when you're ready to walk away. If there's ever any sign of abuse, emotional, verbal, physical abuse, no one, and I mean no one, should have to put up with that. Okay? Because just one time is not, that's one time too many. Okay? So when there are situations like that, I talk with my clients and with my client, if they are a client of mine, and I say, what is this costing you? What is this sacrificing you? If this is costing your mental and your well-being, your happiness, then yes, it's time to walk away. Then you're in a toxic relationship. Are toxic relationships salvageable? Well, it's one of those things where, can you change a person? The argument is the same. You can't change anyone. A person has to be willing to recognize that a change needs to happen. And it's not usually one person. It's a combination of both. So I would say that, yes, there are different measurables to be able to say it's time to walk away. But the first top 4 is physical, verbal, emotional, and what is it costing you? Because if you're experiencing all these, I guarantee your question for what it's costing you, you're going to say to me, well, I'm miserable, I'm tired, and I'm always exhausted. So I want to thank you for that question, sick and tired. And I want to tell you that I want to invite you. I've shared all this information, and if you've been with me for the last couple of weeks, you know that I've just kind of been pouring my heart out to you here about all these different conflicts and these topics that are talked about. But I want to talk about them from a real standpoint. I want to get to know you. I want to have a conversation, a personal conversation with you. So I invite you to please get together with me email me at support@michelleg.com. Let's set up a time to continue the conversation, and let me work with you and talk with you on a personal level. I want to be able to help you solve and work through these challenges. If you have questions about the exercise, I'd be more than happy to help you through that. So I just want to tell you that I've enjoyed this time with you. Thank you so much. We went about a minute over. I want to tell you to tune in next week. We're going to be talking about the three top dating approaches. How to approach that guy or gal that you got your eye on, okay? Because, hey, if you don't know how to approach them, you might not be able to get past that and get to the first date. So until next time, I want to remind you that every day is a new day to reignite your relationships. And remember that in every relationship, the common denominator is you. Take care and have a great night.